In a corner of the galaxy far from the bright lights of civilized planets, there was a spaceport that never slept. Ships of all shapes and sizes docked here, their crews spilling into cantinas and repair shops. It was a place where stories were traded almost as often as goods, and one story had been making the rounds for years: the tale of the Deathworlder special fleet. No one knew exactly where the fleet came from. Some said they were survivors from a planet so harsh that only the strongest could live. Others claimed they were ex-military, deserters who had banded together to carve out their own destiny. Whatever the truth, everyone agreed on one thing: no bounty hunter in their right mind wanted to cross them. Jack Dawson sat at a table in a smoky cantina, nursing a drink. He'd heard the stories too, but he didn't need them to know the fleet was dangerous. Jack had been a bounty hunter for over a decade, and his instincts told him some fights weren't worth picking. Still, the stories fascinated him. They always started the same way, with someone boasting about how they'd take down the Deathworlders if given the chance. But then the storyteller would pause, glance around nervously, and lower their voice. That's when the real details came out: the missing ships, the mysterious battles that ended in silence, and the name Alex Harper. Alex Harper was the leader of the Deathworlder fleet, or at least that's what people said. No one knew much about Harper except that they were smart, ruthless, and impossible to beat. Rumor had it Harper could predict an enemy's moves before they even made them. Whether that was true or just another exaggeration, Jack couldn't say. What he did know was that every time someone tried to go after the Deathworlders, they disappeared. Sometimes their ships were found drifting in space, empty and silent. Other times, there was no trace at all. The cantina buzzed with conversation, but Jack tuned most of it out. His attention shifted when a group of bounty hunters nearby began talking about the fleet. One man, a wiry fellow named Sam, leaned forward and whispered, "I heard they don't just fight. They hunt. Once they're on your trail, you're done." Another hunter, a burly woman named Clara, snorted, "Yeah, well, I've heard enough of those stories to fill a book. Doesn't mean I'm scared." Sam shook his head. "You should be. Remember the asterisk eclipse asterisk. Whole crew gone. Not a scratch on the ship, but not a soul left alive." Clara rolled her eyes but didn't argue. Everyone knew the asterisk eclipse asterisk. It wasn't the first ship to vanish, and it wouldn't be the last. The Deathworlders had become something of a legend, a cautionary tale told to warn newcomers. Even seasoned hunters like Jack avoided mentioning them unless absolutely necessary. As the night wore on, Jack finished his drink and stood to leave. He had learned long ago that fear was a tool, not a weakness. Fear kept you sharp, kept you alive. And right now, the thought of facing the Deathworlders filled him with more fear than anything else in the galaxy. But as he stepped out into the cool night air, he couldn't shake the feeling that sooner or later he might have to face them anyway. The galaxy was a big place, but it was also unpredictable. And in this line of work, unpredictability often led to trouble. For now, though, Jack decided to focus on smaller targets, ones that didn't come with legends attached. Little did he know, the universe had other plans. Layla Monroe was young, ambitious, and eager to prove herself. She had only been a bounty hunter for a few months, but she already dreamed of making a name for herself. Her small ship, the asterisk Stellar Viper asterisk, wasn't much to look at, but it was fast and reliable. Lila spent most of her time chasing low-level bounties, pirates, smugglers, and petty criminals. It was steady work, but it didn't bring the kind of fame or fortune she craved. One evening, while docked at the same spaceport where Jack Dawson sat nursing his drink, Leela received a message. It came from an anonymous sender, but the offer inside was impossible to ignore. The sender promised her a massive reward if she could intercept and destroy one of the smaller vessels belonging to the Deathworlder Special Fleet. According to the message, the target was carrying stolen cargo worth millions, and taking it down would not only earn her the money, but also make her a hero in certain circles. Leela's heart raced as she read the message again. She had heard the stories about the Deathworlders, of course. Everyone had. But she told herself those were just rumors meant to scare people off. Besides, this wasn't about fighting the entire fleet. It was about targeting one ship. How hard could that be? Still, she knew she couldn't do it alone. Bounty hunting was dangerous work, and going after something like this required experience. That's when she thought of Jack Dawson. He was known around the spaceport as one of the best hunters out there. If anyone could help her pull this off, it was him. The next morning, Leela tracked Jack down at a repair shop where he was tinkering with his own ship. She approached him cautiously, unsure how he'd react to her proposal. "Jack," she began, trying to sound confident, "I've got a job that could set us both up for life." Jack raised an eyebrow, but didn't say anything. He gestured for her to continue. "It's a Deathworlder ship," Leela said quickly, watching for his reaction. "They're carrying stolen cargo, and someone's willing to pay big credits to take them out." For a moment, Jack didn't respond. Then he let out a low whistle. "You're serious? You want to go after the Deathworlders?" "It's just one ship," Leela insisted. "And they don't even know we're coming. We can hit them before they have a chance to fight back." Jack shook his head. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. Those ships are armed to the teeth, and their pilots. They're better than anyone you've ever faced." But Leela refused to back down. "Then help me," she pleaded. "I'll split the reward with you 60-40. Please, Jack, this is my chance to make a name for myself." After a long pause, Jack sighed. He didn't like the idea of tangling with the Deathworlders, but he couldn't deny the appeal of the reward. "Fine," he said finally, "but we're doing this my way. No reckless moves, no unnecessary risks." Relieved, Leela nodded. "Thank you, Jack. You won't regret this." With Jack on board, they decided they needed one more person, a skilled pilot who could handle the chaos of a dogfight. They recruited Rachel Brooks, a quiet but talented flyer who had worked with Jack on a few jobs before. Rachel agreed to join after hearing the details, though she seemed less enthusiastic than Leela. Together, the trio prepared for the mission. They studied the coordinates provided by the anonymous sender, plotted their course, and stocked up on supplies. As they worked, Jack tried to warn Leela about the dangers ahead. "These aren't ordinary targets," he reminded her. "If things go wrong, we're not walking away." Leela brushed off his warnings, too focused on the prize to listen. In her mind, success was inevitable. All they had to do was stick to the plan. What none of them realized was that the Deathworlders were already aware of their movements. Somewhere in the vastness of space, Alex Harper watched their approach on a monitor, a faint smile playing on their lips. The game was about to begin, and the hunters were about to become the hunted. The journey to the target's location was long and tense. Lila, Jack, and Rachel barely spoke as they navigated deep into uncharted space. The Stellar Viper hummed softly as it moved through the void, its systems running smoothly under Rachel's careful watch. Outside the ship, there was nothing but endless stars and the occasional flash of distant nebulae. It felt like they were traveling to the edge of the universe. Leela sat in the co-pilot's seat, staring out at the emptiness. She tried to stay focused, but her mind kept drifting to what lay ahead. This was her chance to prove herself, to show everyone that she wasn't just some rookie bounty hunter. But no matter how hard she tried to push away her doubts, a tiny voice in the back of her head whispered warnings. What if Jack was right? What if this was a mistake? Jack, meanwhile, stayed quiet. He spent most of his time checking their weapons and running simulations on possible battle scenarios. Every now and then, he glanced at Leela, his expression unreadable. He didn't trust this mission, but he'd agreed to help, and he wasn't about to back out now. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. Rachel broke the silence occasionally, offering updates on their course or pointing out interesting sights outside the ship. Her calm demeanor helped ease some of the tension, but even she seemed uneasy. She had heard the stories about the Deathworlders too, and while she didn't say much, it was clear she wasn't looking forward to the fight. Finally, after hours of travel, they reached the coordinates provided by the anonymous sender. At first, there was nothing, just empty space. But then, a faint blip appeared on the radar. Rachel adjusted the sensors, and soon the shape of a sleek cruiser came into view. It was smaller than Leela expected, but its design was unmistakable. The ship bore the insignia of the Deathworlder fleet, a black circle with a single red line cutting through it. "There it is," Leela said, her voice trembling slightly. "That's our target." Jack leaned forward, studying the ship carefully. "It doesn't look like much, but don't let that fool you. These guys are professionals." Before anyone could respond, the cruiser's communication system activated. A figure appeared on the view screen, a man with sharp features and piercing eyes. It was Alex Harper, the leader of the Deathworlder fleet. His voice was calm but carried an edge of authority. "Unidentified vessel. This is Alex Harper of the Deathworlder Special Fleet. You are trespassing in restricted space. Leave immediately or face consequences." Leela froze, unsure what to do. She hadn't expected them to detect their presence so quickly. Jack stepped in, his tone measured. "We're not here for trouble. We're just passing through." Harper's expression didn't change. "Passing through? In a heavily armed ship? I don't think so. Identify yourselves, or we will take action." Leela clenched her fists. This wasn't part of the plan. They were supposed to catch the Deathworlders off guard, not have a conversation with them. Against Jack's advice, she decided to bluff. "We're here for the stolen cargo you're carrying. Hand it over, and we'll leave peacefully." Harper raised an eyebrow, almost amused. "You're either very brave or very foolish. Either way, your actions have consequences. This is your final warning." Jack shot Leela a glare. "What are you doing? We need to leave now." But Leela ignored him. Her pride wouldn't let her back down. "If you don't surrender the cargo, we'll take it by force." For a moment, there was silence. Then Harper sighed, shaking his head. "You've made your choice. Engage at your own risk." The screen went dark, and the cruiser's engines roared to life. Leela shouted for Rachel to prepare for battle, but Jack grabbed her arm. "Are you insane? Do you have any idea who you're messing with? It's too late to turn back now." Leela snapped, pulling free. "Get ready." As the two ships closed in on each other, the tension aboard the Stellar Viper was unbearable. Jack muttered something under his breath, gripping the controls tightly. Rachel steadied her hands on the piloting console, preparing for whatever came next. The first shots rang out, lighting up the darkness of space. The battle had begun, and already, Leela realized she might have made a terrible mistake. The battle erupted with a burst of light and sound. The Deathworlder cruiser moved with unnatural speed, dodging the Stellar Viper's initial volley of laser fire, as if it had predicted every shot. Rachel pushed the engines to their limit, weaving the ship through a hailstorm of retaliatory blasts. Sparks flew from the control panel as one of the enemy's shots grazed the hull, shaking the entire vessel. Leela gripped her seat tightly, her knuckles white. She had imagined this moment so many times in her head, her triumphant victory over a dangerous foe. But reality was nothing like her daydreams. The Deathworlder ship wasn't just fighting back, it was dominating. Every move they made seemed calculated, precise, and devastating. "Keep evading," Jack shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. He manned the weapon systems, firing repeatedly, but the enemy ship slipped away from each attack effortlessly. "They're too fast. We can't keep this up." Rachel didn't respond. Her focus was absolute, her hands flying over the controls as she tried to outmaneuver their opponent. Sweat dripped down her face, but she refused to give up. For a brief moment, she managed to line up a clear shot, and Jack fired a concentrated blast that struck the cruiser's side. The impact caused a small explosion, sending debris spiraling into space. Yes, Leela cried, a flicker of hope returning. We can do this. But her excitement was short-lived. The Deathworlder ship barely slowed, absorbing the hit without losing momentum. Harper's voice crackled over the comm system again, calm and steady. Impressive effort, but futile. Stand down now, or you'll regret it. Jack turned to Leela, his expression grim. He's not bluffing. We need to retreat while we still can. No. Leela snapped. We're winning. Just a little longer. We're not winning, Jack shot back. They're playing with us. If we don't leave now, we're dead. Before Leela could argue further, 2 more ships emerged from hyperspace, flanking the cruiser. They were sleek and menacing, their weapons already charging. The trio stared at the view screen in stunned silence as the new arrivals locked onto the Stellar Viper *. There was no escape. Harper's voice came through once more, colder this time. You've been given multiple chances. Surrender your ship, or we will destroy you. Leela felt her chest tighten. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She had been so sure of herself, so confident in their plan. Now, faced with overwhelming odds, she realized how reckless she had been. Her eyes darted between Jack and Rachel, searching for answers, but neither of them spoke. Finally, Jack stepped forward. Enough, he said firmly. We're done. Turning to the comm system, he addressed Harper directly. We surrender. Powering down weapons. Leela opened her mouth to protest, but Jack silenced her with a glare. Do you want to die here? Because that's what's going to happen if we keep fighting. Defeated, Leela nodded reluctantly. Rachel powered down the engines and disarmed the weapon systems, leaving the Stellar Viper * vulnerable and adrift. The 3 of them sat in tense silence as the Deathworlder ships surrounded them, their massive forms casting long shadows over the tiny bounty hunter vessel. A boarding party arrived within minutes, led by a group of armored soldiers who moved with practiced efficiency. They entered the Stellar Viper * without resistance, securing the crew and confiscating their equipment. Leela, Jack, and Rachel were escorted off the ship and brought aboard the Deathworlder cruiser. Once inside, they were taken to a large chamber where Alex Harper waited. He stood at the center of the room, his arms crossed and his gaze sharp. Behind him, screens displayed tactical maps and data streams, highlighting the precision and discipline of the Deathworlder fleet. Harper studied the captives for a moment before speaking. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid to come after us. Which is it? No one answered. Leela avoided his eyes, guilt washing over her. Jack kept his expression neutral, refusing to show fear. Rachel simply looked exhausted, her shoulders slumped in defeat. Harper continued, his tone softer but still firm. I assume someone sent you. Who hired you to attack us? Leela hesitated, unsure whether to speak, but when Harper's piercing gaze landed on her, she cracked. It was a syndicate. They wanted us to take your cargo. Harper nodded slowly, as if he'd expected the answer. The same syndicate that's been destabilizing trade routes and exploiting colonies. I see. For the first time since their capture, Jack spoke up. What happens to us now? Harper considered the question for a moment. Then he smiled faintly. That depends on you. You have skills, and we could use people like you. Work with us, and you might just walk away alive. The offer caught them off guard. Leela, Jack, and Rachel exchanged uncertain glances. None of them trusted Harper, but they knew they didn't have much of a choice. Reluctantly, they agreed to hear him out. Little did they know, their lives were about to change forever. The Deathworlders kept Leela, Jack, and Rachel aboard their flagship for days. They were given basic quarters, small but clean rooms with enough supplies to survive. The crew treated them respectfully, though it was clear they weren't free to leave. Alex Harper visited them occasionally, asking questions about the syndicate and its operations. At first, the trio was reluctant to share much, but Harper's calm demeanor and logical arguments began to wear down their resistance. Harper explained that the syndicate had been causing chaos across multiple systems. Their illegal activities included smuggling weapons, exploiting colonies, and destabilizing trade routes. The Deathworlders had been tracking them for months, dismantling their operations piece by piece. But the syndicate was clever, using mercenaries like Lila's team to do their dirty work, while staying hidden in the shadows. "They're smart," Harper said during one of their meetings. "They know how to manipulate people. That's why they sent you after us, to test our defenses and gather intel. But now that you're here, you have a choice. Help us stop them, or stay out of our way." Leela felt conflicted. She had started this mission for money and fame, but now she saw the bigger picture. The syndicate wasn't just a criminal organization. They were a threat to innocent lives. Still, working with the Deathworlders felt wrong. They were intimidating, almost legendary, and she didn't fully trust them. Jack, on the other hand, seemed more willing to cooperate. He'd always believed in choosing the lesser of two evils, and in this case, the syndicate was clearly worse. "If we help them," he told Leela privately, "we might actually make things better." Isn't that what bounty hunting is supposed to be about? Rachel stayed quiet for the most part, observing everything around her. She didn't care much about the syndicate or the Deathworlders. She just wanted to survive. But as she listened to Harper's plans, she realized they might actually stand a chance if they worked together. Eventually, the trio agreed to assist the Deathworlders. Harper gave them a task: infiltrate a high-profile meeting between the syndicate leaders and several corrupt officials. The goal was to gather evidence of their crimes and expose them publicly. It was a dangerous mission, but Harper assured them they wouldn't be alone. A small team of Deathworlder operatives would provide backup. The operation took place on a neutral planet known for its luxurious resorts and shady dealings. Lila, Jack, and Rachel arrived disguised as traders, blending into the crowd of guests attending the event. The meeting was held in a private conference room inside a grand hotel. Armed guards patrolled the halls, and security cameras monitored every corner. Using forged credentials, the trio gained access to the building. They planted listening devices and hacked into the syndicate's secure network, downloading files filled with incriminating information. It was nerve-wracking work, but they moved quickly and quietly, avoiding detection. Just as they were about to leave, things went sideways. One of the guards noticed something suspicious and raised the alarm. Suddenly, the entire building was on lockdown. Lila panicked, but Jack grabbed her arm. "Stay focused. We need to get out of here now." They sprinted through the corridors, dodging patrols and disabling security systems with tools provided by the Deathworlders. Rachel led the way, her sharp instincts guiding them toward an emergency exit. Outside, a transport ship waited, piloted by Harper and his team. As soon as they boarded, the engines roared to life, lifting off just as reinforcements arrived. Back on the Deathworlder flagship, Harper reviewed the data they had collected. Satisfied, he nodded. "Good work. This will bring them down." For the first time since the mission began, Leela felt a sense of accomplishment. She hadn't done it for glory or riches, but for something greater. And for once, she understood why the Deathworlders inspired such fear and respect. *** document. Part 6 ***. The evidence gathered from the syndicate's meeting was explosive. Files, recordings, and financial records painted a clear picture of corruption and crime on a galactic scale. Alex Harper wasted no time sharing the information with key figures across the galaxy: journalists, law enforcement agencies, and even rival corporations who had been harmed by the syndicate's schemes. Within days, the scandal erupted into public view, sparking outrage and demands for justice. Warrants were issued for the arrest of the syndicate's leaders, and raids swept through their operations on dozens of planets. Entire networks of illegal activity crumbled under the weight of exposure. The syndicate tried to fight back, but without their secrecy, they were vulnerable. Their allies abandoned them, their funds were frozen, and their influence evaporated almost overnight. Leela, Jack, and Rachel watched it all unfold from aboard the Deathworlder flagship. Screens displayed news reports detailing arrests, protests, and investigations. For the first time, Leela felt like she had truly made a difference, not just for herself, but for countless others who had suffered because of the syndicate's greed. Harper called the trio to the command center one evening. The room was dimly lit, dominated by holographic displays showing maps of affected systems and updates on the crackdown. Harper stood at the center, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "You did well," he said simply. "Your actions helped bring down an empire of corruption." Leela shifted uncomfortably. She wasn't used to praise, especially not from someone as intimidating as Harper. "We couldn't have done it without your help," she admitted. Harper nodded. "Perhaps, but you chose to do the right thing when it mattered most. That says something about you." Jack stepped forward, speaking cautiously. "So, what happens now? Are we free to go?" Harper smiled faintly. "You're free to leave whenever you wish. But before you do, I want to offer you something." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Join us. Become part of the Deathworlder fleet. Together, we can continue to fight for justice in this chaotic galaxy." The offer caught them off guard. Lila looked at Jack and Rachel, unsure how to respond. Joining the Deathworlders sounded like stepping into a whole new world, one filled with danger, responsibility, and purpose. It was tempting, but also overwhelming. "I need some time to think," Leela said finally. Jack and Rachel agreed, and Harper gave them space to make their decision. Over the next few days, the trio discussed their options. Jack was the first to decide. "I spent years chasing bounties for money," he said, "but this feels different. If we stay, we can actually make a real impact." Rachel took longer to decide. "I didn't sign up for any of this," she admitted. "But if staying means doing good work, then maybe it's worth it." Leela struggled the most. She had started out wanting fame and fortune, but now she saw the bigger picture. The Deathworlders weren't just warriors. They were protectors. And though she still found them intimidating, she respected what they stood for. In the end, Leela made her choice. When they met with Harper again, she spoke for all three of them. "We'll join you, but we do it our way." Harper nodded approvingly. "Welcome to the fleet." Life aboard the Deathworlder ships was challenging but rewarding. Leela, Jack, and Rachel trained alongside experienced fighters, learning tactics and skills they never imagined possible. They participated in missions that ranged from rescuing stranded colonists to dismantling rogue militias. Each success brought them closer to understanding why the Deathworlders were both feared and respected. For Leela, it was a chance to redefine herself, not as a reckless bounty hunter, but as someone fighting for a better future. Jack found a renewed sense of purpose, while Rachel discovered talents she hadn't known she possessed. Together, they became part of something greater than themselves. Meanwhile, Alex Harper kept watch over his crew, ensuring they stayed focused on their mission. Though the syndicate had fallen, there were always new threats lurking in the shadows. The galaxy was vast and unpredictable, but with people like Leela, Jack, and Rachel joining the cause, Harper knew the Deathworlders would remain a force to be reckoned with. And so their journey continued, not as hunters or mercenaries, but as guardians of peace in a chaotic universe. Weeks turned into months as Leela, Jack, and Rachel settled into their new roles within the Deathworlder Special Fleet. At first, the transition wasn't easy. The training was grueling, pushing them to their limits both physically and mentally. They learned how to handle advanced weapons, navigate hostile environments, and work seamlessly as part of a team. Mistakes were met with firm corrections, but Harper always made sure they understood that failure was just another step toward improvement. Leela struggled the most at the beginning. She had always been independent, used to calling her own shots. But in the fleet, every decision mattered, not just for herself, but for her teammates. It forced her to grow up fast, shedding her old habits of recklessness and impatience. Slowly, she began to earn the respect of those around her, including Harper. Jack adapted more quickly, his years of experience making him a natural fit for the disciplined structure of the fleet. He became a mentor to newer recruits, sharing his knowledge while continuing to hone his own skills. For the first time in his life, he felt like he belonged somewhere. Rachel surprised everyone, including herself. Her talent for piloting reached new heights under the guidance of seasoned Deathworlder pilots. She discovered a knack for strategy too, often helping plan missions with Harper and his officers. Her quiet confidence grew, and she found joy in being part of something larger than herself. The fleet's reputation only grew stronger during this time. Word spread of their victories against injustice, stopping slavers, protecting vulnerable colonies, and dismantling criminal networks. While some feared them, others saw them as heroes. Bounty hunters who once talked about taking on the Deathworlders now avoided even mentioning their name. It became clear that no one wanted to face them, not unless they had a death wish. One evening, after completing a particularly challenging mission, the crew gathered in the mess hall to celebrate. Laughter filled the air as stories were shared over simple meals. Lila sat with Jack and Rachel, reflecting on how far they'd come since their disastrous first encounter with the fleet. "I never thought I'd say this," Lila admitted, "but I'm glad we got caught that day." Jack chuckled. "Yeah, me neither. Who would have guessed we'd end up here?" Rachel smiled softly. "We didn't have much of a choice back then. But now, I think we're exactly where we're supposed to be." As the celebration continued, Alex Harper entered the room. The chatter died down slightly, but Harper waved a hand dismissively. "Relax. You've earned this." Walking over to Lila, Jack, and Rachel, he added, "You three have come a long way. I'm proud of what you've accomplished." Lila felt a lump rise in her throat. She had started out chasing fame and fortune, but now she realized those things didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the difference they were making, one mission at a time. Eventually, the trio returned to their quarters, exhausted but content. As they prepared for bed, Layla looked out the window at the endless expanse of stars. Somewhere out there were countless dangers waiting to be faced. But for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid. She knew they weren't alone. They had each other, and they had the Deathworlders. In the days that followed, rumors began circulating about a new threat emerging on the edges of known space. Harper called a meeting, briefing the crew on what little information they had. Whatever it was, it promised to test them like never before. But the Deathworlders were ready. With Lila, Jack, and Rachel standing shoulder to shoulder with the rest of the fleet, they prepared to face whatever came next. Together, they would continue their quiet crusade, protecting the innocent, fighting for justice, and ensuring peace remained within reach. And so, the legend of the Deathworlder Special Fleet lived on, growing stronger with each passing day.